Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Nick Best, CEO at Astranti, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Clancy Peiris, who works for CIMA and has worked for CIMA for quite a few years. Clancy has in this unique position of having been a tutor for many years and having been at CIMA, so he's got this unique perspective from both the tutor point of view and the insider view from CIMA. Clancy's also worked in Sri Lanka. He was a tutor for many years, having set up wisdom training in Sri Lanka, and also been a tutor in the UK, having worked for BPP as well. So Clancy's got some fantastic insights from across the world, as well as from different ways of teaching and from CIMA. Clancy, welcome. Delighted to have you on the on the call today.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much for having me in your interview today.
No, it's great. So you, you sort of gave me some sort of notes before we started, and you said my love story with CIMA dates back to 1993, and I'm fascinated by you having a love story with CIMA. Could you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, Nick. We all human beings, we are making stories. From the time we come to this world until we depart, forget about that. From the time we get up in the morning until we go to bed. So in my story, in my life story, the CIMA love story is very special because since 1993, it started as a student, member, tutor, as you briefly explained. CIMA is not just a qualification for me. CIMA is a life-changing experience for me. Why I say that it's a life-changing experience? Because I learned various models, theories, techniques, calculations. That's technical knowledge. But what it gave me most was, transformation, my inner world, the way I think, how I look at problems, how I analyze, how I approach solutions. Yeah. And also it changed my external world as well. It gave the global passport to the world. So therefore, it's really a love story for me.
Does that link through, when I know you came to the UK, was that 2007, 2008? Was that all part of, your passport to the world you talk of?
Yeah, it is one side of the passport to the world. It helped enormously for migration as well, because for the CIMA qualification and the membership, I got full points, which are normally awarded for master's degree. Apart from that, even when I was in Sri Lanka, I was traveling to various countries for teaching and training purposes. So including UK, I have taught in 7 countries.
Okay, right.
So it gave me a lot of exposure to various learning styles, different educational settings, etc. So that was really helpful in my present job as well.
And were you an accountant to start off with? You didn't go straight into training, did you? Or?
Yes, I am a management accountant, but at the same time, by training, I am a lawyer. So my accountancy training was so helpful for me to practice my commercial law and understand, the commercial aspects of the commercial law. So therefore, I worked as a management accountant in different entities, but by and large, it was helpful for me to practice as a commercial lawyer.
Okay, so you went from kind of law to accounting, but then onto training. So how did you start to become an accountancy tutor then? What happened there?
Yes, that's another interesting story. Because from small days, I believed in sharing knowledge and I liked teaching. So therefore, I got this opportunity while I was completing those days, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. So those days when I was completing CIMA stage 3. So I got into teaching. I liked it. I liked it so much so with a couple of my friends, I started a business school in Sri Lanka called Wisdom Business Academy. And I was a co-founder and I was responsible for academic affairs. When I left Wisdom in 2007, we managed to build that school to the world's largest single location CIMA school, and we recruited 6,000 students per annum, and I believe it's ongoing even as we speak today.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, isn't it? I was always when I found out Sri Lanka, correct me if I'm wrong, is it the second biggest market for CIMA, second largest number of students? Is that still the case?
That's right, yes. That's the second largest market for CIMA in terms of student numbers. Outside the UK, that is our largest market.
Okay, yeah, no, so it's a huge market there, and I'm sure Wisdom was part of that, and you know, having a really good tuition score there makes all the difference. Well, what is it? What do you notice is the biggest difference between the challenges for the students in Sri Lanka compared to the students in, you know, in other parts of the world, and particularly the UK?
Yeah, obviously, Nick, Sri Lanka's mother tongue is not English.
Yeah.
So therefore, most of the students who move on to CIMA after the advanced level, they study in their mother language, either Sinhala or Tamil, up to advanced level. And most of these students, you know, do some studies in English for the first time when they move on to CIMA. So therefore, that is one challenge. And at the same time, the education system is kind of more knowledge-based as opposed to in the UK, more problem-solving based. What I mean to say is that, you know, case study type of activities, assignments are given to students in the UK, probably when they are in year 7, 8, or for their GCSEs, etc. So that in that education system itself, there is opportunity for them to grow and, you know, develop high level of cognitive intellectual skills.
Yeah,
which is not the case, unfortunately, for many students in Sri Lanka.
Okay. Okay. So is it when people get to the higher level and the analysis skills and the application skills that they find the hardest?
Yes, yes, because I believe that assessment drive learning. So obviously, when these students in Sri Lanka, or to that matter, most of the students in the Asia Pacific world move on to CIMA, they know that analytical skills, evaluation skills, synthesis, you know, all these types of high level of intellectual skills are examined. So therefore, in the course of CIMA studies, they develop these skills as well by default. So that's why I mentioned earlier that CIMA is a life-changing experience for me, because sometimes you forget what activity-based costing is and how you cost a product using ABC. But the thinking skills you developed through activity-based costing is a lifetime skill. You know what I mean?
So you've probably seen a lot of changes in the CIMA exams between the 90s through to now. What would you say are the biggest changes that you've seen over the years you've been working in CIMA?
Gosh, Nick, yes, I have seen substantial changes. In 1993, 1994, at that time when I was doing CIMA, I had to complete not a subject, I had to complete a level. That means I have to pass all the 4 subjects in a given level. Pass 3 subjects and you fail 1 subject, say by 1 mark, but you have to take all the 4 subjects again. So I think that's one big change compared with that. That means whatever the subjects students pass, they can retain the credit.
Yeah, it was really tough back there. I didn't do CIMA, I did the ICAEW. Right. But it was exactly the same there as well. Really, really tough to have to study for and pass all the exams on a level. So really.
Exactly. In addition to that, I think the biggest change is the flexibility CIMA is offering for our students with our objective test exams, you know, on demand, and you can take the exam whenever, wherever you want to. And earlier, the case study exams were twice a year, now 4 times a year. And apart from that, our assessment strategy has also changed drastically in the sense, we have OT exams, and the OT tests are designed to test something that is different from the case study exams. Case study exams are designed to test what we do not or what we can't test in objective test exams. Perhaps we can talk more about it later. So from flexibility to assessment strategy, and even when you take the case study exam, it mimics the world of work. So therefore, what we test is ideally what our candidates are supposed to do at the workplace. So that has given the competitive edge as a qualification for us.
It's a kind of practical exam now, isn't it? It's something aimed at giving people work skills rather than just being purely academic, which certainly when I took my exams, it was a lot more academic than it is now, which I think is a huge development in terms of helping to develop people into people who can really add value at work.
Exactly. Yes, Nick. The whole idea is to ensure employability and create a future-ready management accountant. So to this effect, even when we take the syllabus structure, we have operational level, management level, strategic level. So when a student completes a given level and move up, that means the student is getting a promotion in the qualification. Yes. And they learn the knowledge, the skills, competencies, attitudes, what they learn in a particular level is what is needed for them to work in a real organization at that level. So therefore, there are so many changes. And what I said earlier, it's a life-changing experience, is more applicable today than the time I did CIMA.
And actually, they're little qualifications in their own right now, aren't they? Once you get to certain levels, which I think back when we took our exams, they weren't. You either got the whole thing or nothing at all. You could call yourself part qualified, which was always helpful. But okay, I have a question from a student for you here, Clancy. And it's a question coming from Michael, who said it's his first time writing a case study exam, and he needs all the help you can give him, is basically what the question is. And I know you've got 3 critical success factors that you tell students are the 3 things that you think are the most important things for success in case study exams. So yeah, I wonder if you could share those with us.
Yes, certainly, Nick. I think it will be helpful for someone who is doing the case study exam for the first time to know why there are case study exams in addition to the objective test exams. So case study exams are categorically designed to test what we cannot test in objective test exams. More precisely, we want to test integration of knowledge, which is learned in 3 different subjects, because in the real world, we need the knowledge, the skills that are learned in 3 different subjects to identify a business problem, evaluate, rather analyze the business problem, and identify solutions, evaluate, etc. So the integration is important, and also the communication skills that are very important for a management accountant. So case study exams are designed to test communication skills as well. That is why the case study exam mimics the world of work, where the questions appear in conversational language, perhaps like an email from the line manager asking a response, or email asking to write a report in the next 1 hour or so. So to me, there are 3 critical success factors to pass a case study exam. The first is the PRESEEN. The PRESEEN released 6 weeks before the exam. Now, when a case study exam student sits the case study exam, it is like sitting for a job interview. Before you go for a job interview, what you do is prepare very well. That means you do your homework to know about the company, products, who are the key people in the company, their background, performance, any issues, etc. So the PRESEEN is written to give all such information to candidates So why PRESEEN is important? Because in the exam, in addition to the PRESEEN, there is unseen or scene setting information, which is based on the PRESEEN information. So if a student has not understood and remember the key themes of the PRESEEN, the student will be finding it a bit challenging to understand the unseen. At the same time, for the student, the world, the business world is the PRESEEN and the scene setting unseen information. So in the answers they write, they need to demonstrate the application skills using evidence from the PRESEEN and unseen. So PRESEEN is very important.
So it's, I mean, ultimately it's having done that research, then showing you've done that research on exam day by referencing the company's position and the strengths or weaknesses, the industry that they're in. So it's using the information to show the examiner that you understand the company.
Absolutely. Yes.
And therefore you're applying, not just a theory exam, which the OT exams are, it's the application of that to the company and showing the examiner you are applying it that is critical.
Yes, Nick. Yes. So at the end of the day, in the exam, the second critical success factor is understanding the question requirement. Now, why I say understanding the question requirement is important, because the questions come in conversational language, and also the single biggest concern of the examiners is that students have not answered my question, but they answer. So what do they answer is a question that is in their head, not necessarily the question the examiner has set for the student, because
I see that all the time. All the time. Student scripts. It's the one they want it to be, or the one they knew about, or even the one that they just didn't think about it closely enough. Absolutely.
Yes. So if you don't answer the question, you don't get the marks. Simple as that. And the third critical success factor is thinking. Now, why I say thinking? Because the finance function has transformed today into a value center from a cost center. So management accountants are hired to create and preserve value in organizations. So therefore, cognitive skills or high level of intellectual skills are really important for a management accountant. Therefore, the case study exams are designed to test these high level of cognitive skills. So what we demonstrate through the answers is what we think. So therefore, in the exam, we need to think. To think, we need thinking time. So that means answer planning. To me, answer planning equals thinking equals time management. So all in all, Nick, what I would like to suggest is allocate first one third of the time out of the total time allocated for reading the question, understanding the question, and planning the answer. So when you do the answer planning, you generate your thoughts, you think, and we organize in a coherent, logical order that will be relevant to the question asked. So therefore, in a case study exam, what we write is important. How much we write is important. In what order we are lining up our points are important. At the same time, our brain is brilliant. Sometimes it remembers everything we have studied, but all what our brain throws at, we should not write. So what we don't write is also important to get full potential marks.
Yeah, so it's about thinking up front what the requirement is, planning what your answer is, really thinking about it, analysing the scenario in the context of the PRESEEN. I'm trying to sum up your 3 points there. Actually, if you can get those 3 things, you're going to get what the examiner is really looking for. They're not just after do you know Ansof's matrix or do you know activity-based costing. They're after can you apply it to this scenario and answer the question as I want you to ask it and do the analysis.
Exactly. You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say, Clancy, that I'm sure that people will be watching this at different times. Some people will be watching it just coming up to a case study exam. Other people will be watching it when the case study is a good few months away and the case study won't even have come out yet. What would you advise people to do before the PRESEEN has come out for their sitting, if that's the case for them?
Yes, Nick. What we do even before the PRESEEN is seen will be very important in the case study exam. You know, we'll face the reality. You know, as a student, when we get the PRESEEN, what we are interested in is to read the PRESEEN and to know the business story in it and analyze and then get ready for the exam. But here I recall the Pareto principle. You know, what we do even before we see the real PRESEEN is having 80% impact on the exam success. And what we do perhaps after the PRESEEN may have, you know, 20% impact. Now, why I say that? Now, firstly, especially for a student who is doing the case study exam for the first time, firstly, you need to be familiar with the case study exams, you know, because the case study exams are unique. And even if you have done operational level case study exam, you know, management level case study exam may have some unique features. So spend a bit of time to see perhaps the past PRESEENs, question papers and answers, examiner reviews, etc. So you know exactly how the exams will look like. Secondly, in the case study exam, we do not test the PRESEEN. We do not test the knowledge, but to apply the knowledge, we need to have that solid knowledge. So there may be knowledge gaps because you have done these respective objective test exams sometime earlier. So the human tendency is we forget things. Or you may be exempted from these objective test exam subjects. Or perhaps you may have done the objective test exams under the previous syllabus. So it's important to identify, are there any knowledge gaps, and to take action to bridge them. Then thirdly, the PRESEEN analysis skills. You know, analyzing PRESEEN does not mean reading the PRESEEN 3, 4, 5, 6 times, underlining, highlighting, or annotating. All what matters is remembering the key themes of the PRESEEN when we go to the exam. So how can we do that? My suggestion is, you know, even before you read the PRESEEN for the first time, take 4 blank sheets of paper and put a heading on each paper: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So what I'm suggesting is, even in the first reading, identify what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That means in the first reading itself, you have a fair idea about internal environment and external environment. When you do the second reading, ask a question: why I consider what I identified a strength as a strength, why this is a weakness, why this is an opportunity. So then you have your SWOT analysis. So therefore, you can do this by going through a couple of past PRESEENs and develop the PRESEEN analysis skills. And another important thing is writing skills. So we can use the time before the PRESEEN to master, you know, writing skills by writing answers to the time for the past exam variants. By any means, it is not waste of time. So by the time you get the PRESEEN, you have identified the knowledge gaps and you have bridged them. So you have the required knowledge, you know how to analyze the PRESEEN, you have developed the writing skills. Perhaps if you think your typing speed is not up to the mark, perhaps you can take action. So there are so many things we can be ready with, so that when we get the PRESEEN, then we can go in the full throttle. So we are going to publish, Nick, kind of case study exam readiness checklist
Okay.
things such as, so we will publish this about month's time or so. For example, I can, based on my analysis on the PRESEEN, I can go back and refresh my knowledge of the key competencies, tools, or techniques. I can apply and demonstrate the relevant competencies at an advanced level in a work-based scenario. So likewise.
Okay, so the student can go through checking that they think they've got those skills. Yeah.
Exactly. So at the beginning, you have the checklist, and you may use this checklist to plan your rest of your studies, and then perhaps you can progress check periodically, maybe on a weekly basis, or when you come to your study milestones, and then perhaps 1 week before the exam, when every box is ticked, you are ready for the exam, and nothing more can give you confidence for the exam, isn't it, Nick?
Absolutely. I think in addition to the points you've said, I think one thing I see a lot of students struggling with is their time management. And I think that before the exam, they can practice past exams, or actually we have a practice pack of 60 questions that you can do at any time, because we base them on past exam questions, but we've taken away the PRESEEN, so you don't have to know the PRESEEN. But what you can do is you can master, right, I've got 30 minutes to do this question, or I've got an hour to do this section. And so you can master your exam technique and your writing style, but all within the time. Your planning approach as well that you talked about earlier, you can practice that. So you can practice so many of the skills you need to pass. But I agree with you that lots of people, they almost think, oh, well, I'll wait till the PRESEEN comes out. The problem then is you're so focused on the PRESEEN, you're forgetting actually that that's only a small part of what's right for success. So,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about on the OT exams? Oh, actually, one other question before that, because I know you've been looking at what the examiners have been saying about case study exams as well recently. Is there anything else from your analysis of the examiner's views on the case study that you would kind of add to the kind of comments you've made so far?
Yes. A lot of students, when they meet me, they ask, Clancy, what advice can you give? And I say, the best advice I can give you is the advice given by the examiners in terms of what our examiners expect in your answer, and in fact what they experience. So obviously there is a experience expectation gap, and when we look at, I encourage all the students as well to read the examiner reports that are published after exam. So when we look at examiner reports, Nick, not only for the 2019 syllabus exams, not only 2015 syllabus exams, I have been teaching CIMA since 1995 up until I joined CIMA in 2009. So there are common themes in examiner reports. If I group them into four, the first common experience expectation gap is technical knowledge, gaps or limited understanding of theory or incorrect application of theory. And this is more common to the operational level case study exam. The second area is, as I mentioned earlier, exam requirements. Either the exam requirements were ignored or misunderstood, or not answering the question that was asked by the examiner. So understanding the question requirement is very important. The third area is answer itself, where the examiners say the answer is insufficient, or there is unclear explanation, or sometimes the answer is not related to the unseen information, where students greatly focus on the PRESEEN material, but they don't relate the answer to the unseen information. Okay. Yeah. And the fourth and the last one is, very importantly, application. Insufficient use of PRESEEN and unseen information. I'm just quoting from an examiner. Or insufficient justification of answer points and recommendations. This comment I see very often in management and strategic level exams. So obviously we know, Nick, in case study exams, there's no one correct answer. students' common sense, general knowledge, their work experience, together with the PRESEEN information and theory knowledge, plays a greater role in case study exams. So therefore, just recommendation won't earn marks. The reasoning and justification is very important. So it's always what, why approach. What? Okay, this is the advantage, for example, and why you think it is an advantage to that particular organization in that context. So
and that's so important, isn't it? Because it's saying the why, and it's relating to that company in particular. And because actually it could be, I don't know, it's an advantage of outsourcing, like expertise. But why do they need expertise? Why does that company need expertise rather than you learnt that expertise was the right answer for that particular thing? So yeah, the why, absolutely crucial. I always like, actually, and I'd add to that, a way I sometimes get my students to do the why is you say why once, and then you say it again. So you kind of say, okay, well, why is expertise important to them? Well, because they don't have any internal experts. Well, why is that important to them? Well, it's because then the advice that will be given will be a much higher quality, that will mean that they'll end up having higher profits, or the project will be more successful. So it's asking why once, but you can ask why and then why and even why again until you feel like the depth is there, because often that justification isn't enough depth in my experience.
And that takes back to the previous point we mentioned, that is understanding the PRESEEN is very important, because then only we can relate that answer with the evidence that is found in the PRESEEN.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So just let's move on to OTs then. And we had another question from Michael here, which was obviously taking P1 time technique, and how do I pass P1? And I know time management on OT exams is absolutely, one of the keys to success in the OT exams. What would you advise students in relation to OTs, and Michael in relation to how he manages P1 time technique?
Yes, Nick. I have met some students who are asking, what are the exam techniques in the objective test exams? And then my simple answer is the single biggest technique during an objective test exam is time management. Obviously there are 60 questions in the case study in the objective test exam, and now because of computer technology, we can test the entire syllabus in 60 questions, and these 60 questions are balanced across the syllabus topics, the syllabus weighting, the question types, more importantly the level of difficulty, or in exam language we call it demand of the exam, and over 90 minutes. And some students I have met unfortunately think that 60 questions, 90 minutes, that means one question 1.5 minutes. But that's not the case, because the questions, the 60 questions in the objective test exams are not lined up according to the level of difficulty. And also it's worth knowing that level of difficulty of a question depends on so many factors. For example, the subject matter tested, the question type, whether it is a multiple choice question or data entry question, or the information provided in the question, or the real task that in turn requires some calculation or thinking time. So in the time management, my advice is get easy marks first. That means, question 1, for example, question 2, okay, it is a long question, you need more time to think, or it's a question you need more time to calculate, okay, then leave it, move on to the next question. So likewise, try to come to the 60th question in the first 30 minutes or so. In that, you may have found some easy questions which takes maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. The moment you finish reading the question, you know the answer, right? Then you have collected all the easy marks, and that gives you some confidence as well. Then when you click the next button at the 60th question, you go to the review page. So in the review page, the questions that are not answered, we find the word incomplete in front of the question number.
Okay.
And at the same time, we encourage students to use the flag function so that they can go back and review the answer they have provided. So now, in the next 50 to 55 minutes, the students can spend adequate time on the so-called relatively difficult questions. You need time to calculate, you need time to think, you need time to read the question, and then you may answer those questions. So therefore, the students who have practiced this approach, they pass OT exams and they manage time very well.
Okay, it makes a huge difference. And what other tips would you give people in relation to OTs in addition to the time management?
I think in addition to time management, Nick, the other challenge is, you feel time pressured. So therefore, you read the question. Sometimes you don't understand the question. So this is applicable for objective test exams as well. Mm-hmm. Or in the mighty hurry, reading, answers and distractors, sometimes we misunderstand. So therefore, perhaps another thing that our students can do is develop fast reading, so that you are reading a little faster, but it's like you are smart reading. You don't miss the key points. You get exactly what is asked for and what's the answer. So therefore, even though we are reading fast, we should be able to understand what is precisely asked for and identify the most suitable correct answer. Having said that, objective test exams are mainly designed to test knowledge, comprehension or understanding, and to a certain extent application. So therefore, the technical knowledge, solid technical knowledge is important. And one question in the OT exam may test multiple syllabus areas. So therefore, it's really important to learn, understand, cover the entire syllabus before taking the objective test exam.
Yeah. So it's about I mean, it's kind of an obvious one, really, isn't it? Really understand the theory, but not just know the theory, but understand it. I think particularly at the higher levels, it becomes more important as well, doesn't it? And what would you say was the big difference between, say, people at strategic level compared to certificate and operational level?
Yes, strategic level is the final level before applying for membership, of course, with the required practical experience requirements. Now, when it comes to the objective test exams, yes, we need to understand the theory, the models that are in E3, P3, F3, but it's really important to have an idea about the strategic level persona. We have introduced a persona for each level: operational level, finance officer; management level, finance manager; strategic level, senior finance manager. So I encourage our students to go to the blueprint and have a clear idea about this persona. As a finance manager, what is the expectation? The expectation is to sort of advise the senior management to take strategic decisions with a long-term focus, where you take into account both internal and external aspects of the organization. Or sometimes the senior manager needs to take decisions and justify, or take, working as a co-pilot, collectively take decisions with the senior management. So therefore, my first suggestion is, whatever the theory, whatever the models you learn in E2, P2, E3, P3, F3, keep that in mind that I am a senior manager of an organization. So through that perspective, try to learn that. And also in the case study exam, the same principle is applicable. Always we need to keep in mind that, I'm a senior manager of an organization.
I think it's one thing I've noticed. We've just been rewriting all of our question banks actually, and particularly at that level when I'm reviewing questions that our team have produced. At the strategic level, the questions are so much more applied, and it's so much less about knowing the theory and getting the theory right, and it's about what does this mean for the business and what's the right decision and how would you analyze this. And I think it's those skills that people need to, as they're, you say, like apply it to your company or your strategic thinking. It's always thinking about application. How does this work in the real world? And that's a big difference. Obviously, lots of question practice is key, but it's also thinking about that as you're studying that I would really recommend. We had a student actually, Fong Nguyen, who specifically said that about to resit the P3 exam. And I've done all these different things, and what can I do differently? I won't. It's quite a long question, so I won't say it specifically. But I think to me that's the real thing, is that really thinking about application at that level and applying, and the practice questions need to be thinking about, do I fully understand it? Because it's not just about the theory anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And then specifically, Nick, since you asked about the strategic level exam or its objective test as well as case study exams. And I can summarize in 3 sentences the expectation of a senior manager. In other words, the expectation of a strategic level student, in preparing for the exam. Now, firstly, advise the organization's leaders in the development of business strategy to create value and to evaluate strategic options. Secondly, advise on issues relating to corporate governance and can evaluate the control environment and the management of internal audit. Thirdly, exercise of professional judgment and ethics, as this may have a significant effect on stakeholders. So it's very broad, higher level, and kind of always advising the senior leaders of the organization.
Yeah. And so actually that's where students need to, I think as you transition, you need to get away from I'm just learning the theory to how would I advise a company based on this, and really trying to think about that when they're practicing questions and reviewing the theory. Absolutely. I had another question from Helen, which is a very specific one to the moment, and the fact that we've, that people are starting to take exams at home. And I know a number of students have been concerned about the scratch pad, and Helen says, do you have any tips for doing calculations like present value tables in the scratch pad used for online exams? It feels much slower than being able to write it on the test center whiteboards. And yeah, I know it's a real challenge for people, and it is one of the difficulties with doing them from home. Have you got any tips for Helen and other students in that situation?
Yes, I think if you are taking the exam in a Pearson center, the clean white pad is provided, so we can use the same method that we use with a pen and a paper. Yeah. And I think Helen is asking about, using more than the on-screen scratch pad, the online whiteboard probably, which is applicable for students who are taking exams at home.
Yes.
We know that we use pen and paper to do the calculations because we have to enter only the final answer. But at the same time, we need to balance with the exam security, because at the end of the day, the trust is the most important element when it comes to a qualification or assessments. So reluctantly, we had to decide not to allow students to use pen and paper if they are taking CIMA online exams at home or office. Now, the online whiteboard is more advanced in terms of functionality compared with the on-screen scratch pad. So we have come across students who have passed the objective test exams involving more calculations, where they had to use the online whiteboard, and all what they said was, what we did was we downloaded the tutorial of online whiteboard, and we practiced calculation questions at home before the exam using the online whiteboard. That was of enormous help in the exam. So I think that is the single best thing that we can do to strike a balance between, what we have and what we don't have. Practice, these type of questions using the on-screen whiteboard, online whiteboard rather. It will be really helpful.
And where will people be able to get that if they want to practice the whiteboard? Is that just on the CIMA website?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. You can find the link on the CIMA website.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, that reminds me as well that I hear a lot of students who haven't gone on to take the Pearson VUE practice tests, not because they need to take the questions as practice exams, but because they see they need to practice using the Pearson VUE system prior to going into the exams. And I think that's another part of that, is make sure you've just been in those and how to play around as well. So, but no, I think actually using that, I think it is harder. It's going to be hard to do a present value analysis on an online system, but the more you've practiced it in advance and come up with your own technique, the more chance you will have of being successful. So.
Exactly. It's like, you are going for a driving practical test. You do 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours practice, but the car that you are going to use for the exam, probably the previous day, you are going with your instructor on the same likely route using the same car. That matters in the exam. So as any exam,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Completely agree with that. It's a lovely analogy. And is there anything else you just generally, Clancy, when you bring together those 20, what would it be, 27 years of experience of CIMA exams and tutoring and CIMA, is there anything else you'd just like to share with students that you think, in terms of them getting through their exams and passing, that's really important?
Two key points to sum up. The first is that studying is one aspect of life, even though it takes dominance, prominence, at times. So my suggestion is that don't neglect yourself in the sense, relaxation, proper meals, exercises, etc., because happy students learn well. This is a universal rule. Secondly, we may prepare using X number of hours, but at the end of the day, what matters is the answer we produce in the case study exam, or the answers we identify and produce in the objective test exams. So therefore, the final decision is taken by looking at the answer. So therefore, identify all the necessary skills, information, and other tools that are required to produce a good answer. Especially in the case study exam, by reading the answer, if we come to a conclusion that this is a good answer, to me, there are three key aspects. One is, by reading the answer, I know the student has read the question and understood the question, and the requirements are correctly interpreted, and then answer the entire question. Secondly, the content of the answer gives me the impression that it's a good answer. For example, logical and coherent answer, and the answer demonstrates understanding of the theory and the principles, and the theory and the principles are applied well to a specific problem or issue. And if there are any computations that are used, like simple ratios or percentage increase, the proper referencing is provided. So the prerequisites are there: read the question, understand all the requirements, etc. Secondly, the content of the answer. And don't forget, the presentation of the answer is important. For example, the answer conforms to the format required, and it is concise and business style, and the layout and the appearance, and easy to follow. Then each point, one point in each paragraph, selective underlining, all sorts of cosmetic things at the end of the day. And importantly, answer within the time provided, because Nick, you have already also experienced that towards the end of the answer, we can clearly see the student is rushing through, or sometimes bluffing, because they are struggling with the time. So therefore, yes, focus on your life as a social person, and look after yourself. At the same time, make sure that you have everything ready to produce a good answer.
Fantastic. I mean, some amazing tips, I think, for students, Clancy, and I think hopefully people will go away and take those and really practice all those ideas to help them get through the exam. So huge thank you for joining me today. And
thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity, and I take this opportunity to wish all the very best for our students as well.
Absolutely. Lovely. Thanks, Clancy.
Thanks.